Tuesday, everyone, the first Tuesday of December, which means Thanksgiving's in the rearview mirror and Christmas and the holiday season is coming up fast. I'm excited about today's guest and the energy, and it's going to be a blast. I know it. But as we get started, as I usually do, I want to start with the usual announcements, beginning with be sure to check in with those around you, because so many, especially this time of year, so many have they'll have difficulties, or maybe you know somebody that went through some difficulties. They went through a medical emergency, a family issue. It could be anything. And while you were there when they were down at the beginning, then they're able to put on a mask often to look like they're doing fine. And the reality is, if you check in with them and they open up to you, they may not be as fine as you think. So check into those around you, especially those that you know have gone through something, and understand that just because somebody looks awesome, it looks like they're doing great, it doesn't mean that they're doing great. I talk about masks all the time. We wear them all the time to hide something about ourselves. There's a lot of people, especially this time of year and going through the winter, they're going to be wearing those masks because they're afraid to let people know how they're really feeling, because they're afraid how people might negatively react. So be the positive in other people's lives and check in on them. I want to highlight my sponsors, beginning with my dear, dear sister, bestie, business partner. I just love CJ, Dr. Constance Leland. She does so much. Level Up Academy, it's education, it's public relations, it's anything that can be done to lift you up. It's anthologies. I mean, we've done 4 of those this year between us for Level Up Academy, and we're getting ready to talk about the next one, and I'll get to that one in a couple minutes. So CJ, she is there to level you up. She's there to help you move to the next level. And one of those things I said was public relations, press releases. She has access to all of these different industries. And there's my beautiful sister right there in the middle of that picture. All these different industries. She can write the press release. She can get it into all these places. She even has access to premium magazines and at a discount, because, you know, my sis, she loves coupons. We love coupons. If we can find that discount, we will take it. And when it comes to the press releases, when it comes to the premium magazines, it's a way to get your message out there. If you've got something that you are ready to blast out to the world, you've got a book, you have a new program, you're starting something new, you're taking what you're doing to the next level, whatever it is, touch base with CJ. Talk to her about what she can help provide to level you up. She understands SEOs, that search engine optimization that is, for many of us, is like, okay. She understands it all, and she is the person to talk to. She is amazing. Then I want to highlight the Hounds of Business with Mike Ashebrainer. It's CJ, and I'm doing it all the time now too. We talk collaboration over competition. That's what the Hounds of Business is all about. It's bringing people together, not looking at each other as competition all the time, because competition raises your anxiety. But when you can find those ways to collaborate, even it doesn't matter if they're doing the same thing, because you don't have the same clients. You probably don't even have the same focus, even if you're in the same industry. And on top of that, there's 8 billion people in this world. You can't do it all unless you've got a huge army behind you to service everybody. So working together is a great way to reduce the anxiety. You get to learn from each other. Sometimes you learn things from the other person that lifts you up, that will level you up. So Hounds of Business, that's what they're looking at. It's a community to really bring people together, lift people up, bring organizations. And Mike Ashebrainer, the leader of the pack, as it were, check out Mike, check out Hounds of Business. You'll find them on LinkedIn and see what's happening. It might be just the place that you were missing to take your business to the next level. Now, I mentioned anthologies, and while the limited Black Friday pricing that ended on the 30th, because Black Friday was last Friday. However, we have the Christmas pricing. So for the month of December, it's 20% off of what we normally charge for anthology, and we keep anthologies as cheap as we can. We only charge $500 to be in our anthologies because we do everything else in it. We're your editors. You do everything with us. We're not bringing outside people in to work with us on the editing or marketing. That's all in-house. You're either working with CJ or myself on the editing, or sometimes both of us, because we work really well together, but yet we do different things. This is that collaboration. And this anthology, The Chronicles of Scattered Pages, stories from everywhere. The beauty of this, and it was our dear sister Paulette who mentioned this idea to CJ. When it comes to stories, I mean, so many anthologies, they're focused on a topic. You will talk about when it was moving beyond boxes, that was the focus, was that journey to move beyond the boxes. That was the anthology that I led back in June that came out. In September, it was Rebel with a Cause. That was CJ's. And it was focused on being that rebel and going against what others are telling you to do. So they have a theme. This one, it's wide open. You get to write whatever you want about yourself, as long as it's clean and it's proper and that stuff. But up to 2,000 words, your story. You can talk about your pets. You can talk about the trees you see outside. It's whatever is calling to you. And the other thing is, think about this. Every time you do an anthology, every time you write in a chapter in one of these anthologies, especially with CJ and I, we like to help you with your legacy. So it's a chance to write something about yourself that can go down to the next generations, multiple, 50, 100 years down the line, because it's printed. And it's also an opportunity to, in many of them, build on your business, so that when you're done with our anthologies, when you're done with it, you're not done. We're not done with you. You're with us continually. And those anthologies, when you write, especially if you got that business aspect, it's yours. We have contracts, yes, but it's to protect you so that you keep your intellectual property. You keep your rights to that story, whatever you wrote. We only have the rights to do it. We print it this first time around, Kindle, paperback, and then it's yours. And you can use that for your own book. You can use that for your own business. So it has a lot of advantages. And then just to kind of finish it off, because I am an author doing more than just anthologies, my Armor of God series, which is right now the first 2 volumes, which is a complete story between the 2 of them. I've put that on a Black Friday sale through Friday. No guarantee I'll go longer. I might, you never know. But I published this last year, and really what it is it's another way. When I wrote it, I didn't realize it at the time when I wrote it, but then as I published it, it is the story of what it means to move beyond boxes and shine. It is the story of a prince who is always being told who he is, what he's supposed to do, what he's supposed to be. I mean, are you familiar with this? hello, I know what this is like. And so it's hard for him to figure out who he really is, who his authentic self is. This story, Search for the Armor of God, while they go looking for the mythical armor of God, it turns into Henry's own story of finding himself and finding his authentic self, to move out of the box that everybody has kept him in, to be his authentic self. And then it continues into battle for the armor of God. So it's a lot of fun. I loved writing it. It's so much fun to have it published out there, and the fact that it aligns with so much of what I talk about. But now I'm going to bring up my amazing guest. You can read about her everybody can read about you in the event notice, because I just want to dive in and start talking with you and get to know you more.
Hi, Susannah Dawn. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I've been excited to get you on ever since we started talking about it. So I've wanted to connect with you for a while, but it's been a crazy year.
It has, hasn't it? I think this year's been, everybody says it every year. This year's the craziest, but I swear it is.
Well, yeah, in an election year, more ways than one, but.
So true, so true. And with all the projects you and CJ have been working on,
yeah.
I know your year's been crazier than mine.
Well, and the thing is, we got to meet each other in real life for the first time in January, when she's like, "You want to go to Podfest with me?" And the next thing I know, when I said yes, it's like my flight took me to San Diego, and then we met in the airport at San Diego and hopped on the same plane with another gal to Orlando and back. So, and she was there the whole time because she knew I had trepidations, and I talk about it in some of my stories. And she's the first person to really say, "I got your back," and she had my back.
She's phenomenal. I know CJ. I've known her for probably a year and a half or so, and there's nobody like her.
No, there's not. She's a blast. But then there's nobody like you either.
Oh, you're so kind.
I've seen a lot of the interviews you've been on, the shows you've been on, and you have your own story of really. I see it as you have your own move beyond boxes, but you also in turn help others to move beyond boxes. And when I do that, talk about it, it also includes kind of a reinvention, which is why I just decided to call myself the Reinvention Maven, because I know what that's like too. So I'd love to let everybody kind of know a little bit more about your story of from where you kind of came from to how you got to BrandFace.
I would love to share that. And I think there's such a cool alignment with From Boxes to Butterflies, because we talk a little bit about, remind me later, I'll tell you this topic called "Don't Put Your Brand in a Box," right? And it's very similar to like the essence of From Boxes to Butterflies. But when I graduated high school, I went to college, and I sold vacuum cleaners door to door to pay my way through college. And that is when I got really my first taste of personal branding, even though I'd never heard the term before, ever. So I had no idea what that was. I just knew instinctively that, hey, nobody's letting me in their house to show this vacuum cleaner. I'd better like sharpen my skills here and tell my story a little bit better. So I started doing that. And that went really well for me. And about 3 years in, somebody from the radio world discovered me and said, "Hey, you're a pretty good salesperson. Why don't you come and join this radio station I'm working for?" It happened to be an engineer that worked at a radio station. And I say fast forward 18 years from there, I was still in the media world. So my game was really changed though, Susannah, when I got into the media world, because it wasn't just going to somebody's house and trying to sell one product. It was, okay, now I'm in the world of business. And those doors that I was knocking on had more commas and zeros behind them. And they slammed in my face left and right, just like the ones that I started in the vacuum cleaner world with. And I thought, well, I don't like that. And so if I want people to perceive me differently in this higher stakes business world, I need to change the way I present myself. And so that became, it's leveling up, if you will, to take a term from Dr. Leland, leveling up my personal brand. And I became one of the first radio salespeople in the country to have my own website. I began to approach my clients very differently. I began to really study my craft. About a year to a year and a half later, I was rocking it in the sales world, in the radio world. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. And then I happened to think, if this works for me, hey, maybe it can work for somebody else, for all my clients. So I began cherry picking my clients, the ones that I thought really had this great story to tell and I could work with, bringing them into the studio, helping them craft that message and get their business name out there and their persona out there. And as a result, over the next 18 years, created a lot of what I call business celebrities. And that leads me to 2012, I started writing the first book in the BrandFace series. 2013, BrandFace became a business, and 100% focus is on personal branding, specifically on creating a comprehensive brand that is profitable. So profitable personal branding, because I think that's a lot of what's missing in the branding world, is that profitability. How can you use your brand to actually get clients? And so I know that, that's kind of the story leading me up to where I am now in terms of BrandFace and where we are today. So, so that'll get us started, Susannah.
Well, and I notice like you actually in many ways have a dynamic duo going as well, even though the other one couldn't be here.
Yes, he had a real estate closing today, so he couldn't be here today, but he is he started out as a client. His name's Michael Carr, started out as a client. Then he became a co-author in one of the books, the book BrandFace for Real Estate Professionals. Then I asked him to become a partner in the business, and then we became life partners. And so that's our journey together. So as Mike Asherbrander, Mike, the Hounds of Business founder, as he says, hey, he came for branding and he left with love.
There you go. Well,
leave it up to Mike.
Think about it though. In many ways, as you're doing the personal branding, that's what you're trying to get to happen for your clients too, because
so true.
They're coming in for the branding, but you want them when they walk out. It's like people see the branding, but you want that love, that they just keep working together.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I want them to do the most is love themselves, really, because we have a saying that we started years ago: a great brand doesn't just change the way others see you, it changes the way you see yourself. And so that's really where it all begins, I think, is that love of yourself and realizing that you are this great butterfly, right? And let's just paint the world all the colors you want it.
Right. And that's and when I was thinking about what you do and BrandFace, and like you said, it really does align with boxes to butterflies, because you're really helping people get out of a box, and trying to brand yourself is it's not that easy. We're not all into marketing. We're not all into those aspects. Like, you've got it down. CJ's got it down, but and I'm like, I'm getting there, but
you're doing a great job. And no, it's not easy. It's hard to see the label when you're the one inside the jar. It's really difficult. In fact, it's one of the most difficult things to do because we're so great at our crafts, all of us at
Right.
what we do, that it's really hard to turn those tables on ourselves. And I think that's true a lot of times, no matter what you do, not just the branding aspect of things, but if you help people to execute something or do something or see something in their own life with what you do, it's really hard to put that mirror back on yourself.
And again, I like your analogy of seeing the label on the jar, because I will talk about just trying to shift that point of view. And because if you can see that label, then you can find a path out to do whatever's next. And so oftentimes we need somebody to guide us out of our own head.
That's so true. And first of all, I want to say to Dr. Constance, you're a sweetheart. Thank you so much for that very kind comment you just put on the screen about trustworthiness. It's not just trusting somebody else to guide you through something like that, but it's trusting yourself to be able to let go a little bit and let somebody guide you through all of that. And I think, when I said in the at the beginning of this interview, Susannah, is remind me to tell you something about don't box. How did I say that?
Don't put your brand in a box.
Don't put your brand in a box. Thank you. Yeah. So putting your brand in a box, is a couple of different things. So sometimes people will say to you, and I've heard a lot of like coaches over the years and branding people and marketing people say, oh, well, your clients will decide what your brand is, right? They'll make that decision. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. If that's the case, you're doing it all wrong, right? They'll make the decision about whether to do business with you or not do business with you. But I think it is up to each one of us, or I feel like we're obligated to craft the greatest brand that we can that precedes us. So if you think about it, 98% of people will actually meet your brand before they ever meet you. And that's a stark realization for a lot of people. But if you think about it this way, I just had a call with someone who's looking into our program not long before I jumped on this interview. And he was talking about, well, if I get in front of people and, when I talk to them, they understand my brand, they understand what I'm all about, I can explain myself. And I said, that's great. I said, but that's the engagement phase of everything. That's after someone has made that decision to get in front of you and to have this two-way conversation. But until then, your brand is out there representing you everywhere they come across you. And so if they come across you on your website or on a social media post or watching you on a video or listening to you on a podcast, that's the brand that they're exposed to allow them to make a decision about whether or not to get in front of you or to have that face-to-face conversation. And that's what I mean by 98% of people will actually meet your brand before they meet you. So to me, why would we not want to craft exactly how we want to show up right here between you and I? Why wouldn't I want to craft that outside of here to say, okay, by the time I get here, I want you, Susannah, to feel like, you know what? I've seen your videos. I've seen you here. I've seen you there. I feel like I already know you. Mm-hmm. And I want you to know what I'm all about and what I stand for before we get right here to this spot. That's what your brand's for. And that box, so to speak, don't let somebody else choose your brand for you, because I assure you, we all have a brand. And and somebody's going to tell us what it is, right? And we want to be the ones to craft that because we owe it to ourselves to craft that. And that's the kind of what I'm talking about. Don't let someone else put your brand in a box too. Right? It's kind of like labeling people. And in branding, that's a sticky point sometimes when we think about that, because when you say don't label yourself, right? The first thing we think is absolutely nobody should label themselves, right? On the other hand, in the branding world, I sort of want to have this label that of my own making that I create to say, this is what how I want people to see me. This is what I want to be known for in this space. And so it's totally okay to create your own label there, so to speak, as long as it's of your own making for your own purposes and you are totally happy with it.
I swear, everything you're saying, I'm just thinking about everything I talk about, and I talk it in like a different direction because I talk about the boxes, but the boxes are the labels, the stigmas, and all of that. And I talk about how it's others who put us in. So you're talking about how people are basically putting you in a box and saying, here's your brand, here's what you should do, kind of a deal. And we're both basically just bust the boxes. Because when I did that reinvention I talk about, it was going into 2022, tired of being told that who I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be. And so I entered the year with the mantra of no more boxes. But the problem is, and somebody else kind of pointed this out to me, that this world is designed to see us in a box. It's designed to stick us in boxes because it has to categorize us. So once it learns a little piece of who you are, just a sliver, depending on how they view that sliver will depend on how they view you, which isn't right, because no label, no box can define any of us. It's just like,
So true.
just like when you talk about those the brands, you want your brand to be yours, not what somebody else says you are. And that's what I love about how you're doing this.
Thank you so much. You know, it reminds me of, and I'll give my dad a plug here today. So a couple of years ago, I wrote my dad's memoir, right? And he had a very challenging life. He was, as a young kid, you know, he had two parents that were moonshiners, effectively, and his dad spent some time in prison, and so he had this very challenging life. And then he took those challenges and made poor choices with them later on, right? As an adult in his 30s, 40s, all the way through to his 60s. He made some very challenging, he won't mind me saying this, I can tell you that. We've had many discussions about this, but he made some very questionable choices, let's just say, Susannah. And I always used to tell him, Dad, come on, it's all about choices. Make the right choices, right? And so it is kind of like our brand in the box that we, you know, our label we choose to give ourselves, as long as it's our choice, right? And
Right.
it's a choice for good. I think that's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
CJ's chiming in, so we're gonna let her question
Okay.
come up next. How do you help someone who needs your help but doesn't know where to start? Some tips to guide them.
Yes. Okay. So there's two starting points, I think. And they can happen simultaneously, or you can do one before the other, but in the end, they kind of have to come together and match. And I'll explain that. So, first of all, you need to understand who it is you want to help. Like, who are those? We've all heard the term ideal customers. Okay. And that is, and sometimes we have a primary ideal customer, a secondary ideal customer, sometimes even a tertiary ideal customer, depending on the business that you're in. But I look at that customer and I think, okay, who am I best suited to serve, right? Maybe that's a better way of putting it. Who am I best suited to serve? Whose shoes have I perhaps walked in? Who is going to feel the things that I have felt? Who's going to respond best? Who's actually going to do the work that it takes to get where I've gotten, perhaps, right? Or to get where they deserve to be. And so I look at defining them not just in terms of demographics, but in terms of psychographics, perhaps. You know, I look at pain points, I look at challenges and struggles, dreams and desires, like what does that person want and need to achieve? So once I define who that is that I really am best suited to serve, then I take a look at what are those things that make me very unique inside my space. So a lot of people look at branding and they think, okay, well, branding is just, hey, I'm just being really well known for what you do. A lot of people might define it like that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's not enough. So it's not enough to be known for your profession. You must be known for being different inside of your profession. And so that differentiation is really what makes us all fire on all cylinders, right? So there's multiple things, like for you, Susannah, the multiple things that make you very unique, just like there is every human being. What I would look at is, I would say, okay, Susannah, out of all those things that make you unique, here's one or maybe a blend of a couple of these that also really resonate with and are significant and meaningful to the people you're best suited to serve. Okay, so if we say, okay, Susannah, here's your point of differentiation over here is A, this is the one thing you want to be known for, but your ideal clients really need B and C. Well, in positioning, in the branding world, we will build a bridge to nowhere if we try to connect those two dots. We need to make sure that what you want to, what makes you super unique inside of what you do also appeals very strongly to those people you're trying to attract. And that's when you built this awesome bridge to what your ideal customers need, want, and deserve to what you can provide to them in a unique way that no one else can. And so that bringing that together, I think, is where you start. Thank you for that question, Dr. Leyland. But I think that's where you start, is those 2 points. And if you can nail those 2 things down, you get a lot closer to positioning yourself very uniquely.
Well, and okay, so this will take you all the way back to what you started talking about when you talked your story, because again, you talk about a bridge. And when I talk about storytelling, the most important thing of a good story, of storytelling, is to bridge the audience into the story. So that's exactly what you just talked about, is they're in 2 different spots, but you're creating a bridge to bring your audience to your story, and hopefully thereby showing them that they really do need this.
So true. And I think too, that bridge is a very like customized bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because not everybody's going to cross that bridge, because not everybody wants to or needs to, and you don't need them to. You really only want to build that bridge for certain types of people that you are best suited to serve. And I think that's where a lot of us really kind of get off the mark really easily, because I've heard so many people say, well, I know that I probably should be over here in this niche or working with this specific type of clientele, but I know I could do really well over here and over here and over here. And I think, well, okay, well, we're already off-roading here, right? We're already going way off the beaten path. We need to stay here in one area where we've got those guardrails up to say that's another thing a great brand and positioning does for you, is to say, this is the one thing you're going to want to be known for. These are the people you serve, et cetera. Therefore, here are the guardrails. Again, not meaning to box them in. And that's actually the language I use when I talk to people. I'm not telling you to hone in on a specific clientele to box you in. I'm telling you to do that to focus you in, so that you're not strewn out in so many different directions. When you get to a crossroads, you can't take all 3 directions, right? Nope. Either not unless you're cloned a couple of more times, which, that'd be awesome. But I haven't seen it happen lately, except for Dolly the sheep, right? But there's no, you can only really go in one solid direction. So that makes a big difference too. And it's another link to the boxes.
Well, and I like that, the different types of bridges, because I think about how many different types of bridges there are, and there are going to be those that want to go over the rickety wooden bridge, those who want to go through the covered bridge, those who want to go just on a big freeway bridge that they don't care what they see. They just want to get from point A to point B.
Motivations are different for every human being, aren't they? And I really try to keep that in mind. And it can be challenging for sure when you've got 10 clients over here who have pretty much the same types of motivations, and you have one over here that's like completely different. It can be very challenging to work in that frame of mind, but you have to do it because we're all individuals. Yeah. And that's what makes it so powerful, is just because you say, okay, for instance, our, brand identifier, if you will, it's a term we coined, 12 years ago. Brand identifier is that tagline or slogan that showcases that one thing you want to be known for. So for BrandFace, it's profitable personal brands. That's the one thing we want to be known for, right? So that brand identifier really sort of quote boxes me in a perfect box. Like that's exactly where I want to be, right? In fact, we like to say anybody can build a pretty brand, but unless it's purposeful and profitable, it's actually pretty pointless, right? And
Yeah.
that's because that's what we do, what we're known for, our superpower, what we stand for. And speaking of those customized bridges, there's lots of people in the world who do what every one of us listening to this does, right? There's lots of personal branding people in the world. And I can line up 50 of them and I can speak to them in the same way that I'm speaking to you. And there's only a certain portion of them that are going to be attracted to that and really resonate with me and want to come on board with me so
Right.
that I can help them, right? Somebody else may speak stronger to someone else in the audience. And that too is where the customized bridges come from. You're not meant to serve everybody.
Exactly. And again, that also fits what I kind of talked about at the beginning when I was talking about the hounds of collaboration. Because you just said you can have all these people are doing the same thing as you, but out of that group, not all of them are going to want to work with you, but you could probably collaborate with at least a handful and look at what you can do from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's the collaboration of like-minded, right? Like-minded, like-spirited. You really want that because that is what fuels everybody going in the right direction and the right spirit in a community. And, I mean, I have to hand it to Mike Asherbrenner. He's definitely done that. He's got the right spirit in the community and he fosters that and he protects that. And I am really drawn to that. Love that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, because so many people, well, for me, when I said I was done with boxes, also because I couldn't niche. Everybody in the world is saying you have to niche down. I can't niche down. It's almost physically impossible for me to do that. So when I first got on LinkedIn in 2006, 2007, people are saying this is only business and you have to be one, maybe two things, and that's all you can talk about. And so I really kind of disappeared from it until about 2021, 2022, especially 2022, when I kind of got back into it. Not I stopped using it, but when I started looking at who was in there, I saw the differences. I saw the women who were talking about issues that are important to us. I saw, and it's like a lot of this is not Tinder stuff. And
Right.
I've seen a lot of that change now because I'm not seeing quite as many Tinder type DMs as there used to be.
Thank goodness.
and the addition of being more vulnerable, being more open about your story and what you've done. I mean, this is stuff that was like the self-proclaimed LinkedIn police would go, this is not Facebook. This is not Facebook.
True. True.
It's business.
Yeah.
Everything about us is part of business, and that it's going to be part of your brand as well. And you just have to figure out what parts do you really want to highlight versus what parts you just kind of, for me, when I talk about my story, it's like, okay, I do not highlight certain things, but I don't hide them either.
Love that. I love that outlook. And I think, when it comes to LinkedIn, when it comes to anything, and I think this is how I love to define personal branding. It is a perfect mixture of who you are as a human being and who you are as a professional. Because on the back of all our books, it says people don't do business with a logo, they do business with a person. because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, in almost every scenario period, they're doing business with a person. Now, some are more high profile, faces of the business, whereby, the entire business rests on their reputation, their thought process, because they founded the business, right? And it
Right.
all makes total sense, right? But no matter whether you have a big, well-known face of the business or not, you're doing business with an individual human being at the end of the day, most of the time. Okay. So I really love how how much fun it is to weave in somebody's personal story, because I learned a long time ago that if I want to know why somebody's doing what they're doing today, I need to look at how they grew up.
Mhm.
Who or what influenced them in their life to put them where they are today, doing what they're doing today. And every single time, that's where the story comes from. So if we look back at that person, we're going to know the character of that person and why they're focused on what they're focused on. And I want to address your niche thing in just a moment, Susannah. But yeah, I just wanted to say that the perfect mixture of personal and professional.
Well, and before we hit the niche, it's like I'll throw out, because you talk about what you put on everything, your motto. And for me, I basically, my motto is a single sentence that is kind of like a summary of my life story. But it surprised me how many, especially women, have sat back and go, it related to it. And I start every chapter in an anthology, and if I do a memoir, it's the first thing I put in it. It's like, I'm not what I used to be, yet I am who I've always been.
Oh, I love that. That's enlightening.
And it's like, it says everything, but it doesn't give away anything either.
Yeah, it's a deep thought process,
Mhm.
and anybody can relate to that, right? And actually that's a great segue to that niche that I wanted to comment on. You mentioned before, you said I just can't niche down. I think you just might not realize it, right? And I think it's in how we all define niche. We think it has to be, okay, I'm working with this person, I have to have this occupation, male, female, in this community, doing, in serving these type of people, just qualifying people in all of the regular demographic type of ways that we qualify them. But I
Right.
look at it more of, okay, the people I'm best suited to serve, what do they have in common?
Mhm.
What needs and struggles and challenges and goals and desires do they have in common? Because that's really where the rubber meets the road, as we like to say. That's where they're going to really uh, be attracted to the things that we offer them or not. So I don't care as much. Although when we look back and we say, okay, we're most suited to help, I'll give us as a great example. Okay. Why do we focus on coaches, consultants, and industry experts and building personal brands for those people who are the face of their business? Why do we do that? Because that's us. That's who we are. That's
Right.
what we've done. That's the story we have created. Those are the shoes we've walked in. And so I've lived that. I understand that. I came from that world. I helped create this, right? So that's where I am. So that demographically, that's totally fine with me. I'm fine with being into that. More than anything though, I'm looking for somebody who's having difficulty really honing in on their story, figuring out what is it that makes them special and unique to the world, and how do they present that to the world in such a way to draw in people that will actually pay them for their products or services. And so that's how I define who our ideal customer is. And those same people, no matter where they come from, just so happens that 90% of them are coaches, consultants, and industry experts by nature, right? Because that's who we are. They have these same challenges, and that's really where the connection is what challenge are you having? And yes, I can help you. Why? Because I've helped a lot of people like you, right? And they identify with that, because if I don't showcase that, if I don't say, here are all the different coaches, consultants, and experts we've helped, they're going to ask me, hey, have you helped any other coaches? Have you helped any other consultants? Right? Because they want to know that you've worked in that space. Why? Because that's where your credibility comes from.
Yeah, they want that connection in so many ways. It's
Exactly.
another bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, true. They want to see that bridge, has the sparkles on it that they like, right? Sparkles or buttons or whatever it is.
If it's CJ and I, it's got to have sparkles.
I know. I knew that.
The more sparkles, the better.
Yep.
But that's what it is, though, too, is finding that group. For me, I will talk more of a focus on women. And yes, it's in many ways, it's more of a generic, but like you said, I know what it's like to be stuck in that box and what it means to be aware that you don't have to be anymore, and then find that way out. And when you talk about helping somebody on the path from the outside, the best picture that I have for being able to help somebody see things from the outside, I go back to the movie Kong, Skull Island. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I don't think so.
Kong Skull Island. It's got the guy that played Wreck-It Ralph's voice. I mean, he's one of the main characters in there. I love him anyway, John C. Reilly. But on the island, the main group, they're going into this big cavern, and it was in the this was kind of in the promos for it as well. I saw this scene. So they're walking into the cavern, and there's paintings all over the walls. They're looking at like one section of wall, all this painting, and it doesn't make any sense until they get to the center of the space, and then it makes sense. It's like it's a picture of Kong. It all comes together like a jigsaw and creates a picture of Kong. Now, when you're stuck in that box or you're stuck in that jar and you don't know how to get out, you can't see the path. It's kind of like, you know where you want to go. You want to go where that picture of Kong is. That's where you want to go. But you don't know how to get there because you can't see the walls in the way. You can't see the speed bumps in the way. But if you've got somebody who can basically take you from that point and pull you backwards, back up, and then you see how it separates out, and you can start seeing where the speed bumps are and where the spots are that you can go around the wall to get to your target. That's what it all sounds like to me, is that the way to help somebody see where they are and that they can get where they want is to pull them out and say, here's what it is. And that's my best example I can think of. When I saw the movie, it's like, this makes a whole lot of sense.
That does make a whole lot of sense. One of my favorite things when we take somebody through the branding journey is what we call the brand messaging reveal. And that's where we've done their interview process, and our team has pulled together like this messaging that really tells their story, right? And so when they're on that session and you're sharing with them, say, for instance, their biography, which is like this super short, because we have had to shorten it over the years. We live in an attention deficit world, right? You can't be bothered to read 6 paragraphs anymore. You're down to 2. So when we're pulling this together and really pulling their whole story into it, I cannot tell you the number of times where I have actually seen grown men cry. And so many people have cried throughout this process. And I find it so heartwarming because they'll say, I don't know why I'm crying. They say, this is really the first time that I've been able to see my entire journey. And this is the first time I've been able to see I've actually accomplished a lot. This is truly where I'm meant to be headed, right? And when you see that happen before your eyes, wow, is that an awakening? Like I get chills just thinking about it now because it's happened so many times over the years, and it's my favorite part of the journey. And it's so great. And then they'll break through with a funny moment to mask the fact that they're, crying on a Zoom call, right? And they'll say, hey, I just have one question. Who is that? Who is that? I want to be friends with that person, right? And that's another endearing thing that they say, because for the first time, somebody's painted the real picture that only somebody else can see sometimes. And that, I think, is the superpower in of being able to look at somebody and say, I see that story. I see why you want to go in this direction, and helping them tell that story. It's the greatest moment that you can have doing what we do.
So I would ask this then, because it's something else that I think about. So many people have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And how many of your clients like this, when you take them through this process, because this is the way I look at working with somebody to get them past imposter syndrome, to basically follow the red thread from the start to the present, because that's what you're doing. You're taking them from the start to the present. How many of them basically were walking in feeling like imposters and able to walk out and believe in themselves?
More than you would imagine. More than you would imagine. Both men and women have that about them. And I would say, coming in, it's a very honest and transparent thing when they're coming in. So they don't really hide a whole lot. They'll tell you. I just, I can't tell you the number of times people have said to me, Tanya, I don't really know what makes me unique or different. I have no idea. To me, I'm just like everybody else out there who's doing this. I have no idea. And I say, well, you're about to find out. Right. And that's what makes it so much fun. But a lot of people do, Susannah Dawn, a lot of people come in like that. And that is what makes it so transformational, because even the people that are highly accomplished coming into the program develop and this sense of confidence that is not I'm not talking about the confidence coming in, I can do my job. I'm a great coach or a great consultant or a great, doctor or whatever. I'm really great at what I do. They have that, and that's fine. Their craft, being great at that, that's one set of confidence that usually they have a lot of that coming in. Believing they're unique inside of that, and having everything at their fingertips ready to showcase that to the world, and be proud to step on a stage anywhere in the world and say, here I am, right? I'm so different. Like this is who I am, and come on aboard, right? That's a totally different thing. That set of confidence and having people understand exactly who they are from the inside out, and sharing that with the world in such a way that people want to do business with them, that's a different set of confidence. And so that a lot of people say, I was confident at what I could do. I wasn't confident at how I would present that to the world. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people with imposter syndrome. And that's another label, right? It's just another label. It's like, do we really want to admit we have that, right? Nobody wants to, but it doesn't really matter what you call it. We're just sometimes feeling like we don't really understand what makes us special in this world. And
Yeah,
that's what we've got to do.
we don't know what makes us special, or we don't feel like when people are saying that we're doing a great job, that we really are doing anything that great. But that's our own fear in the back of our head. And I like to talk about it more of being that fear that keeps us in the box, because in the box it's dark. In the box it's completely dark. It's the walls are not solid, so there's always cracks and light can get in, but it's dark. And so fear has a seductive voice, but it's in the dark, so you can't see it. But when your awareness starts, when you ignite that awareness, when you start letting more light in to see the truth that you can do this, the more light that's in that box, the less shadow there is. The less shadow is, the less space there is for fear to hide. Because if you were to actually see fear, you would go the other way. You would not listen to it anymore. But the voice is so beautiful that you and it knows everything about you. So what you're really doing is helping people to even if it's things that they're afraid of, that their fear is like saying over and over, you're putting it in a different light.
Yeah.
So that they see it differently. They see more of the truth instead of the concern.
Couldn't agree more. Very beautifully stated. And, it takes me back a few years ago. There was a gentleman named Bob. I'm going to have to look this up one day and find him and thank him for this, because he reached out to me in a DM, and all he said was, "Hey, Tanya, can you make me a star, or just make me a star?" Something like that. Without even thinking, I just hit him right back up and I said, "We don't make stars, Bob. We unveil them." And that's really what I feel so strongly about. That is totally what our goal is to help people. There's a star inside of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow we're missing it. We've got the flaps to the box closed, right? And there's not enough light in. So it's like, ta-da, you popping out of the cake box, right? That's the world we want to create. It's like, pop out of that cake box and be proud of what you have to offer to the world, because everybody does. They bring something so unique that there's nobody else like them. And I think so many people look at themselves as average and ordinary. And that description doesn't fit anyone.
It doesn't. That's also because we live in a society of comparison.
Very true.
So
I'm
when you
guilty of
see
that
somebody doing
sometimes.
better, you don't think you're as good as you are because they're doing better, and you want to be more like them. It's like, just be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, even I'm guilty of those things sometimes. And I think we all are to a degree. We find ourselves in a situation where we feel intimidated, or I'm not enough, not as good as that, don't have that, don't have these things. And then I really have to step back and say, that's a bunch of bull. That's
Exactly.
ridiculous, right? Not everybody's meant to do the same thing, be the same places, have the same things. That's okay. God made us all different.
And when CJ and I are talking to the authors in their stories, the one thing, each anthology we do, one of the things we say up front, don't compare your story with somebody else.
Right.
Because you could see somebody and it's like, oh, they went through so much more. I could never survive what they went through. I didn't have anything nearly like that. But the truth is, they probably wouldn't survive in your story. They had to be in that story because that's where they survive best. Your story is totally different, and you may think it's not as bad as somebody else's, but only you can live it. If you've made it to this point, only you can live it. Nobody else can live that story.
That is so true. And I think it was described to me years ago that, only a lot of intense pressure makes a true diamond, right? And that's how diamonds are made. And so, everybody's level of pressure can be different, but it also is received differently. To your point, you said it beautifully.
Yeah, it's, and I know you probably have someplace to go after this because you probably have tight schedules, and we're coming up to the end of this, which is like, dang, I could keep going and going.
I know, right? I've enjoyed
like,
this.
Sometimes the best conversations are when you're having that first coffee chat, but it's like everybody is watching.
I know. Well, I hope everybody's watching this one, as many people as possible, because what you do is very valuable, and helping people break out of those mindsets and break out of their own labels and their own boxes is a beautiful thing. And I thank you for what you do.
Thank you. It's time for us to stop with letting others tell us what we're supposed to do, because each of us is unique. And that's what I like about what you're doing, because you see every client, every brand is unique. You probably could have 100 different brands and go, they might be similar, but they are not the same.
It's impossible, because there's no two human beings are the same. So it's absolutely impossible.
Not even not even identical twins can be
That's so true.
100%, because when they're not together, they're living a separate life, which means they're getting separate experiences. And that's the other thing in this world, is like too many people, we each experience things in our life, and that's our experience. So it's our truth. The hardest thing is when somebody tries to say that your truth is not truth because they didn't experience it. They don't think it's such a thing. They don't think it exists. It's like, I wish you could go to bed tonight and dream what it's like to be in my shoes for a day. Then come back and tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. The truth is that doesn't exist for them. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And we're in a world that's like, that's why there is so much beauty in the diversification, in diversity of individuals, because it's a mix. When everybody's the same, it's kind of like tomato soup without anything else.
Right. Yeah. The sea of sameness, as we like to call it. You don't want to be in the sea of sameness.
Exactly. So thank you so much for coming, because we're at the hour and I want to respect time. But I'm so glad you were here. It was great. I definitely would love to talk more. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, Susannah.
And if you have any kind of like last minute nuggets, and just make sure everybody knows how to find you.
Yeah, sure thing. So you can find us at brandfacestar.com, brandfacestar.com, or you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. Name's on the screen, Tanya Everhart. And I think just a parting note, I'd like to remind everybody that everybody does have a star inside of them. You have one no matter where you are, no matter where you came from, no matter what you do. You have this uniqueness inside of you. And if you can just be vulnerable enough to look at it and let somebody help you along the way if you're struggling with that. But don't be afraid to be who you truly are, because people want to do business with people that truly are, I don't want to use the word authentic. Authentic is a very overused word. However, it's a great word. It's a great word. Just being yourself. You attract more people like that than you do trying to be somebody else. So just know that there's a star inside of you, and you deserve to let that star out. And those would be my parting words. I wish that for everybody, especially going into this holiday season and into the new year. Craft that presence that you so much deserve. And thank you, Susannah.
I love that in the because CJ talks about it too, and I say authentic self all the time, because that is it's like we have this authentic self, but if I feel like I'm using it too much, then it's like your core being, your true self. It's the part of you that knows what you were placed here to do. And when you're in a box, you can't do it. When you're not in the right brand, you can't do it.
Love that definition.
So it's like the thesaurus is always your best friend. At least it's my best friend.
It's so true, right?
Because when you see you use the same word over and over and over, it's like, okay, there's got to be something else, or people are going to get bored of this.
That's true. That's true.
So exactly. So I loved having you. Thank you so much for being here. And for everybody else, next week, I've got the person who's responsible for why CJ's next anthology is stories from everywhere. So it's gonna be a lot of fun next week. And thank everybody for being here. And I will see everybody next week. And reach out to Tanya, because there's always room to get your brand checked up and improved. Level it up.
That's right. Thank you, Susannah Dawn.
Thank you too. Bye, everybody.